to nerves and nervousness, because this also comes back to the physical versus the mental. Because you referenced tiredness, and so if you haven't been sleeping, then you're going to have more difficult time with nerves than somebody who has been sleeping well. And if you're playing somebody who has a better nutritional regimen, they're getting enough calcium, and they're getting all the nutrients that and they're and breathing well and doing all of these different things that support your nervous system, then whoever's doing that better is going to have an edge. So another interesting aspect too is that I think people misinterpret their nerves, and so they might go into a first round match in a tournament and they're feeling more nervous maybe than they would normally, but you can attribute that to first round jitters or what have you. But one thing that I also teach my players is, hey, being nervous, feeling nervous is okay, because actually what it shows is that you care. You care about the outcome, because if you didn't care, then you wouldn't feel nervous. And then we can reframe that. So instead of saying, I feel nervous, you can turn that into, I feel excited, right? So, the difference, like being on a roller coaster. All right. Now, unfortunately, there are very rare occurrences where people are on roller coasters and there's a horrible accident, but those are very, very rare. And that's why people continue to go on them, every day of the year. But, going on to a roller coaster, that you're not going to die, more than likely. And so that's what makes the excitement so incredible for people who do that. And, but then, if you're driving with someone who's a very dangerous driver, and you have actual reason to be anxious about whether you're going to safely get somewhere, then that's legitimate. I mean, you have reason to be nervous. But the other one, you can turn it into excitement. And that's where I think the way people interpret tennis matches and what the outcomes are of a tennis match and what does it mean has a bearing on whether they're going to be excited about it or feeling nervous about it.
I guess a lot of people say they feel nervous, but they say they feel nervous because they're excited.
Mm-hmm.
So does that relate, or
yeah? And I would say, I would say, well, just stop at excitement. Stop with the and say, okay, tell yourself I'm excited. It's a happier thing to say. It's a more confident thing to tell yourself, I'm excited. I'm excited to play this match, and then more positivity flows out of that. But if you say to yourself, I'm nervous, then there's a little bit of a fear that comes with that. Excitement kind of goes along with joy and happiness. Nervousness and worry, are more associated with fear. So let me see if I can find this image. So
I found like when I feel excited, it's kind of like being on a high a little bit. So, it's easy to kind of go on through life. But when I'm feeling nervous, especially before sport, I feel sick and I feel like it's physically hindering me to perform. So feeling nervous, I don't, like, my personal self don't really welcome feeling nervous, but feeling excited, I definitely like it.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So I hope this will show up. Okay. This is on my phone. And I saw this. I subscribe to and follow people on Instagram who do a lot of neuroscience. And these are some brain scans of people who have suddenly shifted into a subjective judgment of something that's happened. And it shows how the energy of the brain has gone to a different place. And I think that's, what you're saying is that nervousness, which kind of creates a subjective judgment of this is bad, then can really create these problems, the major problems, because feeling nauseous is not what you want before you're going to go play your match.
No.
Which brings up another topic. I mean, it's really interesting because people are so unique. And another thing that Rainer Martins did is he discovered that there are 3 levels that people operate in, and they are trait, and the 3 things carry across: trait anxiety and state anxiety. So trait anxiety is, how are you normally? Are you normally, is somebody normally like a high strung person and nervous about a lot of things and anxious quite much of the time? Or do they have a medium level of anxiety? If they perceive some danger, they might get anxious, but then they can calm themselves down. And then you have people who are very low trait anxiety and nothing seems to bother them, or almost, very few things seem to bother them ever. So that's kind of trait anxiety. And then there's state anxiety. How are you now? How are you at this moment going into that? And an interesting thing was found is that people who have low trait anxiety seem to do best when they get themselves to a very high state of anxiety before coming down. An example of that would be Bill Russell, who's one of the greatest basketball players of all time, who vomited before every game. And there are numerous examples of athletes who, because they have very low trait anxiety, will work themselves up into a frenzy to get their intensity up, and before coming back down and settling down. One of the best examples is something I think a lot of people missed. One of my favorite matches of all time was between Federer and Agassi, and in that match, I think it was quarterfinals of the U.S. Open. It was one set apiece, and then they had Agassi had a break point in the third set, and they had this long rally, probably something around 25 shots, and it ended dramatically with Agassi, hitting a winner at the end. And the crowd went nuts because now Agassi's up a break in the third set. And at that moment, Federer went, he let out a very angry yell at the same time that the crowd was going completely nuts. So I don't think a lot of people caught it. But then what he did is he calmed himself down, and then he went, and I think he won like 11 of the next 13 games. Something like that, and it was like 21 of the next 28 points. It was some really ridiculous point and game streak that he went on. And so instead of this being a match that he barely eked out in the fifth, he won going away in the fourth set. So, I still remember that match because I was rooting for Agassi because it was very late in Agassi's career. But, I think that's a great example. People don't often see that Federer at times became angry for a moment and to allow himself to raise his game. Because in general, he was very placid on the court and seemingly lackadaisical.
Would you say the same for McEnroe?
I would say McEnroe is interesting. I think McEnroe's mental and emotional profile is so unique that I caution anybody to study it to make it their own. it's been said, and I don't dispute it, that McEnroe was one of the few people who could stay angry for a period of time and play better. Generally speaking, I think the vast majority of people, while they're angry, they're going to be using a tremendous amount of mental and emotional energy, and they won't play better. And so sometimes you'll see a junior and they're out playing and they're throwing a continual fit. I can't believe I'm playing like this. What's wrong with me? How come I can't? And they're sort of putting on this display to other people and trying to sell other people on the fact that somehow that player's really better than they are. And then you contrast that with another player who sort of privately, after playing one poor point, might slap themselves on the leg and turn away. And they're not doing it as a display. They're doing it as sort of an inner drive. And so I think those